Hey guys, it's West here, back on the Fresh Made Oreo account with another episode of the 2018 Beginner Account Progression Series. On the last episode, I showed you guys how to make a GB10 team, or the GB10 team that I was building in order to clear GB10 as easy as possible. And now I'm going to be talking about the steps that I'm going to be taking in the future to push this team into, a faster time, into a higher consistency rate, but more importantly, a faster time, because honestly, who wants to sit there for 3 to 4 minutes each time they want to, farm a B10 stage? So we're going to talk about some stuff that's changed here. Most notably, we have this Wind Minotaurus 6-starred and runed up. We're still working on getting all the skill ups for him, but we have him on a speed, crit damage, attack build. Here are all of his runes if anybody is curious. I know some people are small sticklers about trying to hit all the stats possible, so I try to show runes as often as possible in these videos. Speed's not amazing, which is why we have a speed in slot 2. The most important reason we have him here, though, or the reason why I am using him, is because we get this really nice 30% HP lead. 30% HP adds up for a lot of these units. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but 2,000, 3,000 HP per wind unit could mean an extra shot from a crystal you can survive, an extra hit from the Giants boss. And on top of already being wind, that extra HP just gives the wind units even more survivability in Giants B10. So the other reason we have him here is he's a pretty good damage dealer. Although his base attack is very lackluster, he gets a 50% attack bonus, and you're healed for 30% of the damage you deal. His multipliers are okay. His base attack is really low, but because of this passive, we're getting an extra about 300. I'm saying very roughly 300. It's going to be a tiny bit less than 300. It's going to be close enough, though, because his base attack is about 600, so half of that is about 300, so you're getting about 300 on top of whatever your total is. Now that does not stack with a rune bonus. It's applied afterward. It's applied as an additional effect. You could almost imagine it as if you had a 7th rune slot that it was giving you 300 extra attack essentially for your unit. So this guy has exactly 1400 with the rune set I have him on, just happens to be exactly 1400, and on top of that we're going to say roughly 300 more, which would put him up to 1700 attack. So if anyone was curious about how the math works with this skill, but we're using him because he's got this nice self-heal, and the self-heal on top of that is turned into a shield if it exceeds the maximum HP. So the kind of stats you want to aim for on this guy is going to be a lot of HP, a lot of defense, a lot of attack. He's got pretty good survivability. Self-healing units like him, like Magic Knight, are really, really good here because sometimes your heal isn't going to be up. Your heal should always be up. Your Bella should always be healing enough. If your Bella's not healing enough, you're probably not tanky enough, but where Bella falls short, these units can kind of pick up their own slack, which is really nice. Kind of the reason why I'm using him is because of that. In addition, he makes our Seal and Shannon survive a lot more. Our Shannon is actually pretty fast, over 200 speed at this point. So she's pretty quick, which means that we've sacrificed a tiny bit of HP stats, although because of her really low base HP and base defense, it's not a crazy amount that we had anyways. However, the extra HP is going to allow us to survive a lot more, just because it's gonna be about the hit of like one of those ignored defense crystal shots, so it's pretty nice. This guy doesn't die that often actually. The Wind Minotaurus usually outlives Magic Knight just because he doesn't have a multi-hit and he does have the excessive heal turn into a shield. Another cool thing I learned just while using this unit enough, because it has been about a month since my last video, is that heals from Belladien, heals from any sort of heal, in addition to his his base healing he gets from dealing damage, actually apply to that shield. So for example, if Belladien heals here because Magic Knight gets to, let's say, half health, then all that excess healing will actually add on to his shield. You could see the proc kind of happen there because you see his passive lights up when Bella hits him with the heal. I think it's really, really unique, and I think it's really powerful for a 3-star monster. So now that we're kind of done talking about this dude, I want to talk about something pretty big, something that we went over way earlier in the series, which is fusion monsters. I know that there was a lot of mixed feedback based on me choosing not to go with fusions. Now, when I say I'm not going with fusions, I didn't want to start an initial team with fusions because I didn't want it to seem like fusions are absolutely necessary to make an initial Giants B10 team, because it's really not. You could kind of hop into Giants B10 before you make the fusion, although it takes some grinding in GB7 and GB6. This game is all grinding anyways, so it's kind of up to you what path you choose. You could either go the fusion path or you could go the grinding GB7. Either way, you're probably going to have to grind GB7. But you could basically pick multiple different paths of progression, which is kind of what I was trying to show in the beginning. Now, I am going to be making fusions in the future, most notably because the most recent addition to the fusions page, which is the Lightning Emperor. I'm sure some of you guys have seen him. He's really cool. What's more exciting is his sub-fusions, actually, because with him came 2 new fusion monsters, or 2 new monsters that are now fusible, which are Lupinus and Vertihil. Of course, they were already in the game, but now those really, really impactful monsters are also obtainable to everybody because they're farmable. This means that Dragonsby 10 is going to be a lot more obtainable for more people, because I understand even though they had the Vertihil Hall of Heroes, if you missed out on that, maybe you're joining the game late and you didn't get a chance to get it. Maybe you were just so early in the game you couldn't grind it at the time. Now you can obtain Vertihil farmable. So that means Dragonsby 10 progression is completely different. It's really easy to get into Dragonsby 10, or in terms of having the right monsters for it, because essentially getting a farmable Dragonsby 10 team that's going to be really consistent is really, really obtainable now. And also we have Lupinus, who is a very, very nice damage dealer, who I'm a big fan of for Giantsby 10 personally, because she's sort of like a Hua. For those of you who've like looked up speed teams because you want the fastest, Giantsby 10 team ever or whatever, you've probably seen a unit like this. We're gonna go ahead and scroll down in the fire monster box. Hua in a Giantsby 10 team. I know some people are confused because she's a fire monster. Her passive, which reduces the attack bar of enemies, is just so strong though. In addition to that, she has the continuous damage effects, which help you take down the mid boss, which help you take down the boss. She's got this slow, which is really, really nice because it just basically means the mid boss and the boss waves of giants, they're never going to take an actual turn. They're probably going to revenge you once or twice, maybe even 3 times. But if Hua's in your team, it's unlikely they'll get their own turn, a turn to do that big AoE move. So you can really keep the bosses locked down with that. Now, although not as powerful of a single target damage dealer in terms of just raw damage output, Lupinus could essentially do the same thing. She's got an AoE attack bar reducing skill with her 3rd skill. It attacks the first target 2 times, and then the 3rd attack hits everybody. Each one of those attacks decreases the attack bar by 30%, and it's a 100% activation rate. It's just a 30% attack bar reduction, if anybody's curious about that. It's really, really solid because, I mean, honestly, you put accuracy on her and she's pretty good. It doesn't have any weird activation rate thing where it's like only 50% of the time or anything like that. It's a 100% activation rate, which is really strong because, semi-consistently you're going to see 90% of the giants attack bar reduced, which means that you're going to buy a crap ton of turns. In addition to that, you have that slow, which is really, really nice. Now, this is a low activation rate, 50%, but honestly, it's the basic attack, so it's pretty good. She has basically double AoEs and then the single target multi-hit. Now, she might run into the same issues as Lapis does on your team, where she has a chance of just straight up dying because of the multi-hits, but however, she's a wind unit, which means that there's an increased chance that the giant is going to hit a glancing hit on her, which is basically meaning a decreased chance that she's just going to get one shot by the giant. So it's really, really nice. In addition to that, she's got this crit rate leadership skill. Sometimes that's useful, but mostly this skill is going to do crazy damage as well. The attack bar reduction is a huge thing, but in addition to that, the damage based on the enemy's max HP, you're going to reliably see like 60,000 with mediocre 5-star runes, speed crit damage attack or speed crit damage HP. You could see about, 40 to 60,000 depending on your rune quality early game, and the further you get into the game and the more crit damage and attack you stack onto her, the more damage she's going to do, so eventually she could do really insane numbers. I've used her on a numerous amount of teams. If you've checked out any of my other videos, I used her in my earlier progression on my main account, and the fact that she's farmable now is really, really amazing. So I'm saying all this because I'm going to be building the fusions to make faster teams. I did not make fusions because, like I said, I didn't want to make you guys feel forced into a specific direction of progression. I wanted to show you guys you could progress however you'd like to. However, with the addition of the Vertihil and the Lupinus fusion, we will be starting fusions. And we could actually do this Lupinus fusion already because I have all of these monsters sitting in my box. I'm going to work on making these fusions in the future. So I want to let you guys know so you guys have an idea of what's going on, because over this next month or so, I'm going to be making a lot of these fusions. I'm going to be fusing Lupinus. I may or may not fuse Verd yet. I'm definitely going to be stockpiling the units for him. We are also going to be likely building Sigmaris. just because his max HP base damage is really, really strong, as well as this 44% leadership skill brings a lot of consistency when you're starting to get into a faster Giants B10 team, because you could afford to put more damage on your units since you're going to be getting that HP leadership skill. 44% is nothing to nothing to turn your nose up at. For most units, that's going to be anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 extra HP, based on what their base HP is, or 3,000 to 4,000 XP. HP based on how high their HP is. So it's going to be a lot of HP that your units are going to have just from that leadership skill. So basically our Lapis is going to have better survivability on whatever other damage dealers we choose to build. In addition to that, some other units that I've been building and playing around with just because I am going to be using them in the future. The Water Imp Champion Yaku. This build is very, very rough, and the runes are actually surprisingly nice. I have a 6-star legendary rune in his slot too, which is a crazy bruiser rune, which will be given to someone else later. I was lucky enough to get an early game speed grind that rolled max roll, which was really crazy. So his runes are fairly okay. He just needs to be 6-starred. He's another one of those units where he can do some crazy damage in the boss stages, and he's on a attack crit damage HP build that isn't even brought to plus 15. But he could do some of that crazy damage to the boss because he's got this max HP base damage. He's got dots that he inflicts. He's got dots on his first skill as well as a self-attack buff. And then ignore defense with this skill. I mean, he could do some nuts damage. Also, I grabbed this Water Ninja from the Fusion event. The Fusion event has been going on for a while, so if you guys are working toward those fusions, I hope you guys have been taking advantage of it because it's a really, really strong event. We're going to go in here and talk about it a little bit. It's wrapped up now. It's pretty much wrapped up, I believe. So yeah, it's got like 1 day left, so I hope you guys have been doing this. I didn't mention it earlier because I didn't want to really drag people into doing all that, but honestly, you can get 2 pieces of a fusion. On top of that, the game gives you pretty much all the pieces for Veramos. Anything you can't get from, there's like only 1 or 2 units you can't get from a scenario mode and that you don't get from here, because you get the Inferno, you get the Minotaurus, and you get the Water Harpy. So I mean, this game gives you so much to work with in terms of making fusions now. So I hope you guys have been taking advantage of all the events. Always do the events if you can. However, don't force yourself into a situation where you're wasting energy or anything like that. This video is kind of more like a preface to the next video, a way to introduce you guys to fusions if you haven't already fused those monsters. Now, if you're building a team like I am, or if you've been following the guide along with it, I hope you guys have been farming Giants B10 because that's what matters. I have a lot of crystals, but I have been farming a lot. It's just that it's really hard to fly through crystals when your runs are about 3 minutes long. So my runs are pretty long, so I don't really have to worry about that too much. In the future, Megan is going to get 6-starred eventually once I get her max skilled. Coming up is the Fire Mystic Witch secret dungeon. I think it might be open. Yes, it is. So if you guys have this open, if you guys have the ability to farm in this dungeon to the B8 floor at least, hopefully the B8, hopefully the B10, but at least the B8 floor of this, then I would highly recommend you do it because Megan is a great unit. Even if you don't use her now, having her for Dragon's B10 is going to be really, really useful. So you should grab all these skill ups while they're able to be farmed. You probably want to use as many AoEs as you can for this dungeon. If you're having trouble clearing it, if you have reps like Water Homunculus is really good, but even just Lapis reps, Sigmaris reps are really, really strong. Any reps with AoEs or multiple AoEs are really strong. If you happen to have a 5-star Raok build, Raok can just fly through secret dungeons like nothing else. So there's a lot of different options, but I highly recommend you guys farm as much of those as you can because you do want to get these skill ups for Megan because activation rate is pretty important. Cooldown time is pretty important. But those are just my recommendations. Of course, do what you think is best for your account. This guide is not by any stretch of the imagination something you have to follow. I don't want you guys to feel like you're trapped into some sort of progression path. I want you guys to be able to make your own teams. I want you guys to basically learn from what I'm doing in the game. But that's it. That's pretty much it for this episode. The runes have been coming in like crazy. We're starting to get a bunch of 6-star legendary runes. We have some decent 6-star runes just all over the place. Some stuff that I just haven't powered up because I haven't had a use for it yet. But we're making steady progression, and I can't wait for the upcoming weeks where we make these fusions because our teams are going to get really, really fast. So keep on farming, guys. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. I try to respond as quickly as possible anytime I see a comment so I can get back to you guys. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, it's West again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more.